Texas Math Mundo audience. Today we have the new UIL Mathematics Director, Mr. Cliff McCurdy, in the house. It's going to be a great treat to listen to his insight and philosophy. Let me take a moment to say, if you enjoy this material, please take a moment and hit the subscription button and the notification bell. Smash that like button and make a comment below. Mr. Cliff McCurdy, the new UIL Mathematics Director, right ahead. My name is Saul Cantu, and this is Texas Math Mundo. Texas Math Mundo audience, we have the new director of UIL Mathematics in the house, Mr. Cliff McCurdy. It should also be noted, Mr. McCurdy is a legendary coach developing powerhouse teams at Argyle and Valley View throughout the years. Welcome, Mr. McCurdy.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. We're going to pick your brain, and I really want to get to know about that new UIL Mathematics Director. So I really appreciate your presence.
Sure.
Let's start off with how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Thank you. I'm doing well, man. Working hard. You know, I'm a teacher, so it gets pretty busy. I really appreciate you asking me. How you been handling the pandemic?
We sheltered at home for a long time, probably like most people, and we're slowly coming out. You know, we're looking at all the information about vaccines, mandates, all that stuff, and figuring out what we're willing to do and what we're still shying away from. But we're getting closer to a more normal life.
Yes. And where is home?
Sanger, Texas. It's 20 miles from north of Argyle, and it's 20 miles south of Gainesville.
Okay.
Denton is the closest big town.
All right. And Region 2? All right, cool.
Excuse me?
So, you know, being the new director of UIL Mathematics, you know, how challenging has it been to pick up the duties of UIL Mathematics Director?
It's been pretty tough because Larry White did such a good job for 17 years, and people are used to his style, his types of tests. And so that's a challenge to follow anyone's footsteps, you know. How would you like to be the next football coach at Alabama?
You make a good point. You make a good point. Those are some legendary shoes to fill. Legendary shoes to fill. But by all accounts, and I have interviewed some of your ex-students, by all accounts, you're the man for the job. That's what I hear, by all accounts. So.
Well, thanks.
So I'm sure people are curious a little about your background, a little about the forces that shaped and mold you. Where are you from, born and raised, and what is your cultural heritage?
I was born in Austin, but then we moved to Lubbock, and I went to Lubbock grades, first grade through 12th grade. Actually went to Coronado High School in Lubbock.
Oh.
And yeah, I was Texas boy.
So did they have a UIL team back in those days?
You know, we had it, but I didn't even know about it. It was very low publicity thing. And if you were in athletics, you couldn't do it. The two times I knew we had a UIL team is one time we lost one of our really good track athletes, and he decided he was going to work on like number sense instead of track. And of course, we thought that was crazy. And then when we went to get our yearbooks in the summer after my junior year, I noticed one of the guys who I'd had a bunch of classes with, a guy named Steve Orwig, he had actually won state in large scale chemistry. Really? And so those are about the only two times I even knew there was something UIL academics.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow. So you're a proud Lubbock Coronado graduate. What's the mascot over there?
Mustangs.
Oh, the Mustangs. All right. And where'd you go to college?
I went to George Fox University, which is 30 miles west of Portland, Oregon. and it was a really good school. I went from about 2,000 students in high school to 350 in college. And it was a Quaker university and pretty strict. No drinking on campus, no smoking on campus, which I happen to really like a lot. That was just great. And I ended up stretching 4 years into 5 years because that was the best time of my life. I just enjoyed everything about it. Really good teachers. Math department was really solid, and a lot of electives. I took a lot of electives, Bible classes, religion classes, because I had to pick up something in that extra year. And I had to student teach as well. And the schools, by the way, the schools in Oregon, they're not near as good as Texas.
But they produced you, so that's a good sign. So what was your degree in?
My degree was in mathematics, and it was interesting because I was the only one in my class who was math major. So my math classes were with 3 physics majors. And boy, they were tough. All 3 of those guys ended up getting their PhDs in physics. And so I had to compete against them. And one of them, he worked at a nuclear plant in Tacoma, Washington. One of them was teaching college somewhere in the Midwest, and one of them was in California doing something. So it was really tough, but it was good. Our professors in math were really good.
Wow, it probably forced you to elevate your game.
Oh, yeah. It was quite a jump from high school expectations to college expectations. Sure was.
Wow. So you said you heard about UIL sort of vaguely when you were in high school. So
right.
How did you first get involved with UIL? Who were your inspirations, your mentors? How did that happen?
Okay. I taught my first 5 years at Evans Junior High in Lubbock. And then after 5 years, moved to a place in the Northeast Panhandle called Canadian. And I taught at Canadian High School. And the principal said, "You will coach UIL calculator." And so I did. And they did not have team competition back then, but I had the individual district champion all 5 years I was there. And if they would have had team competition, and if I would have been a better coach, the kids at Canadian, we would have got teams to state. We had some really sharp kids there. And if I'd have done a better job, we got one kid to state and he placed 6th. But if I'd have been a better calculator coach, we'd have probably had someone getting a top 3 medal all 5 years. I mean, Canadian was loaded back then.
Really?
So that's where I got my start. Then I went to Valley View. My first 7 years there, I was at the middle school. And then my last 7, I was at the high school. And what tended to happen every spring was one of the senior boys would come by and say, "Okay, I'm done with sports now. I have some time. Can you coach me in UIL math?" And so we had a couple months, and we'd nearly always get that one guy to state, and he'd place 5th, 6th, 7th, something like that. And then we got a new superintendent and a new principal, Dr. Roxanne Wilson. And she came to me and she goes, "What can I do to help you have better teams?" And I said, "Well, if you can do something with the schedule so that I see the kids every day, whatever it is, activity period, a class or something, that would really help." And she made it happen. And so she started paying for us to go to meets, paid for us to go to San Antonio for the state meet. And we started getting teams to state. In my last 4 years there, I think we won state in mathematics 3 times. We won state in calculator twice, number sense once, and we got second in science once. And really, I think that should show every UIL math coach in the state that your principal and superintendent make all the difference in the world, because that's the only thing that changed. I didn't change, kids didn't change, but man, we got a principal who was really supported us, was willing to pay for stuff, and that was a big difference maker there. And also, I was super motivated then to get good. And there was a lady named Janelle Cole at Bridgeport. And Bridgeport used to be the power in 3A. They just were something. And one of the parents there was a guy named Jerry Kennedy. And so they helped me a lot. When we'd go to practice meets, they'd always be there. And it was interesting, they were different in a way, because if I had a number sense question, I'd ask Janelle, and she would always tell me. And she had this notebook like 5 inches thick with all her notes and stuff. And there was no way she was just going to hand that over. But she would answer an individual question. And she was very encouraging, supportive, and she was good. And then Jerry Kennedy was a different guy. His daughter, Joy Kennedy, may be one of the top UL guys in history. She was amazing. Her senior year, her math score at state, she was like 320, 318 something. She was the only one who broke 300, and the large school state champion was like 240. The scores were a lot lower back then, and she just smoked everybody. But she also won number sense, calculators, science, physics. She won everything. Wow. And she's a pediatrician now. And anyway, he helped coach. Like they would have practice at school at Bridgeport with Janelle, and then once or twice a week at night, they would go over to the Kennedy house, and they would have an extra practice. And the way he would help you, I really liked his approach. If you had a question, let's say number 46 on the physics, all the kids are getting this answer and it's wrong. Can you help us with this? And his rule was, give me the question, give me the answer, and then go away. Don't bug me. And when I feel ready, then I will tell you the answer. I will explain it for you. And I really like that, because sometimes if you're on the spot, you may mess up or something. Yeah. But this way, it's a nice, safe way. You got time to think about it. And he was a retired engineer, and he actually moved to Bridgeport so that his daughters could be in the Bridgeport UIL program. Wow. And so those two guys helped. And the third guy who really helped, you probably know him, Andy Zapata.
Yes, I do know.
He was at Azle. And it's really cool how he really helped me get started, because I had a fifth grader, Carrie, and wanted to get her into this. And you can compete in fifth grade, but you just can't go to state. So just kind of heard about it. And so we're going to the first state qualifier. And technically you're supposed to join Team ESCA and all these rules. And he was hosting it. And since we were just starting out, he let us go ahead and come to the meet and join there. Yes. And I remember driving from our house to Azle, sat in the car and taught Carrie some number sense tricks on the way. And so she got there and she scored just barely high enough to qualify for state. So that was kind of a start there with my own daughter as a fifth grader, getting her started.
Wow.
It was fun.
So there's a lot to unpack there. So you mentioned several wonderful things here. One, how critical it is to have an admin that shares your vision, that's willing to promote these academic events. You know, I'm a coach too, and I'm in a new school, and so I have those struggles. You know, finances is a struggle. You know, you got to do entry fees, you got to do transportation. It really is critical, pivotal to have an admin on your side.
It is.
And then the other thing, go ahead.
Argyle is the best it can be in that regard. Because I was at Valley View, and a lady named Cindy Harris, yes. She had been the math coach at Denton High School, and they were always good. She's a sharp lady. Anyway, she recruited me to help her out. And then she also recruited a lady named Kimberly Cass, who was actually the science department chair at Coppell High School. She taught AP chemistry. And so they actually let her recruit teachers who could coach UIL. And the principal there is Dr. Talina Wright, and she has supported UIL 110%. And the superintendent there is a guy named Quentin Burnett, Dr. Quentin Burnett. He also supported UIL 110%. And that is why in just a couple years, Argyle had just opened the school. When I went there, they didn't even have a senior class. Wow. And the first year there, we won state in science. And the administration, huge amount of credit goes to them, because Argyle has the kids. it's like South Lake or Highland Park. It's got some upper crust kids that are just sharp as they can be. But what makes it work is the administration wants you to be good, and they do everything they can to help you be good.
So no wonder all the stars seem to be aligned for Argyle. They had a supportive administration. They had faculty and staff willing to put in the time and effort, and they had supportive parents. All the stars were aligned. No wonder I have such a high opinion of Argyle. Perennial powerhouse.
Right. You hit it right on the money.
Wow. So so describe your years at Argyle and Valley View, if you'd like. What were the supportive administration, the supportive parents, faculty, and then of course the kids? All those kids aligned. So how were those years to you? Were they very joyful?
Oh, they were great. I guess I'll start with Valley View. And it's a Class A school. And it's a Class A school. Ag was huge. Sports were huge. And UIL academics, they were there, but they weren't very much until this new principal came. And we just had the right group of kids and parents there. And they bought in. And the kids there were so sharp. Had a kid named Dusty Bush. He's now an engineer at Lockheed Martin. Wow. But his senior year, we went to Tim S.A. State, and our calculator team broke 1,200. Wow. With Class A. And he scored 373. That's when you could score 400. Yeah. And he beat everyone in the whole state. Every individual, he's a Class A kid. And our team score beat all the 5A was the largest division then. Our team score beat all the 5As. Wow. And it's because we were just loaded. As far as UIL goes with those guys, we won state in math 3 times. Wow. And we had good team scores. We would not have been right up there with the 5As, but probably with 1A, 2A, 3As, and most of the 4As. And calculator, we won twice. And that was probably our strongest there for a couple years. In number sense, we were good, but there was a high school called Midway, Henrietta Midway, and they had a really good coach, and his specialty was number sense. Wow. And we only beat them once. And then science, we got second once. We would have won it once, but a senior guy we needed to have, he would have won biology and maybe physics. I don't know. Dusty scored 96 at state in physics, so I don't know if he'd have beat him. But he would have won biology, and our team would have won. But the ag team pressured him to go to an ag contest. Oh. He didn't want to go. Oh. But there was so much pressure on him. And he said, yeah, he won a medal the size of a nickel. No. But
that's amazing how you can get a 1A school to have like higher classification scores,
Well, they were just loaded. Plus, the principal got the schedule where I saw him every day.
Yes, that helps. So
we probably had 45 minutes of practice 5 days. Well, I'll say 4 days a week. Friday was usually crazy with sports. But, I bet most coaches, if you could say you'll see your kids 4 days a week for 45 minutes, I bet they'd take it.
Absolutely. I wish more schools, and I've talked to a couple of people. I know I talked last week to a top contender, and his school implements that period in their schedule. It makes all the difference, because there's so many conflicts, transportation after school. It just gives so many more kids an opportunity. You're right. That's key and critical. I hope some admin listens to this.
Yeah, that'd be good. Because I think there's some coaches every bit as good as me, but they're just not in that same situation. And so they don't get a chance to have state champion teams very often because they have so much to overcome.
Yeah, there are a lot of issues. How about Argyle? How did that path go?
That was an easy path because Cindy Harris, she got there when they just had like sophomores, and she got it started with the biology teacher named Elaine Casey. And so the math science got off to a good start with just freshmen and sophomores. And then when Kimberly came in there for chemistry and I came in there for physics and math, we were set to go, and it was just a matter of getting the kids coached up. And so, yeah, our guy was an easy situation, a really good situation.
I must say, I did interview one of your former champions, Les Murphy, and you
Right.
received a resounding endorsement from him. He talked you up, so that's such a testament that you'd have a former student that was so appreciative of your efforts and your skill as a coach.
Les was a very sharp guy, a very good guy. He won state in physics, and he only missed one that he answered. And he won state in math by about 50, 60 points. He was really good. And calculator, he missed winning by 2 points, but he missed 5 punch problems.
You know what's crazy? All these state champions you have, and you have such intimate knowledge of his performance. I find that fascinating.
Well, it's probably like a football coach who remembers statistics of his players and games and stuff like that. You know, I was into UIL quite a bit, so I remember a lot of the particulars.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. And you're right. There is a bit of a coach aspect, of knowing the numbers and following and tracking their progress. I love it. I love it. That's part of the joy is watching the progress pay off in actual competition.
Yeah. I bet if you talk to Keith Taylor at Sabine, I bet he can tell you about his teams and individuals exactly the same.
And I definitely want to talk to more coaches. I want to get more of their perspectives. So Keith Taylor at Sabine.
He's really good.
Yeah, I'm going to rewatch this video. There's several people you've mentioned already. That Kennedy girl that you said she was outstanding state champion. So
Joy Kennedy.
I'm taking notes. Maybe I can get some of their perspectives onto this program. I think it would just be so valuable to preserve that and to share that.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
So what are your favorite memories as a coach?
Of course, there's tons of them, but since you notified me, I tried to narrow it down to just a couple. So at Valley View, my favorite team memory, I think I told you, was that year at Tennessee State when our calculator team just had the greatest day of their lives, broke 1,200. And those were good kids, good country kids who were just really gifted at math. And individually there at Valley View, of course, was Dusty Bush. 373 in calculator at Timska State Meet. At the UIL State Meet, he scored 96 on physics. And anyone who coaches UIL physics knows how hard that state meet test is. And really, if I was a better physics teacher there back then, he'd have scored a 120. Because he only missed 3, and I did not do a good job on those 3 that he missed. I could have done a much better job.
Interesting you would say that, because so you must have evolved as a coach, because by the time Les Murphy says you're the most spectacular physics teacher he ever had. So you must have evolved as a coach.
I worked real hard at it, and there was quite a bit of difference from when I had Dusty to when I had Les in physics. At Les, one of my favorite stories about Les is we practiced once a week on physics, and when we went to an important meet, our practice would be review physics formulas. Because if they've had a good class, kids are going to have an idea how to work problems, but are they going to have all those formulas they needed memorized? And so as we would go through those, Les Murphy literally stood on his head and recited the formulas upside down.
Really?
And I bet today he still has half of them memorized.
Wow, what a memory.
Yeah, that was fun practice.
That is fun. I want to point, if a kid's lucky, they have a very knowledgeable coach, but really for any potential sponsors out there, they should know they don't have to be the master of their subject area. Sometimes kids just need somebody to take an interest.
That's exactly right. You got it right.
I just want to emphasize that. It's lucky when they have, a Cliff McCurdy on their side. That really helps. But nonetheless, any sponsor that's willing to get into there is very appreciated. So
it is, right.
So tell me, how did you arrive at your current position of UIL Mathematics Director? How did that happen?
I was at the Texas Tech summer camp for math and science, and Larry White was there, and Winston from Highland Park was there, Andy Zapata was there, and a guy named Brad Friesen. He's been from Plains, and now he's at Denver City. and they had us all rooming, in the same area. And so at night, we just sit around and talk. And anyway, Larry said he was thinking about giving up the math at sometime in the next couple of years, and kind of wondered if I'd be interested. And I was a little bit hesitant, but he said, think about it. And, I'll get back to you later and see what you think. So I decided I'd give it a try. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh, wow. Wow. Can you describe your relationship with the former director, Mr. Larry White, both in terms of your friendship and also a working relationship?
Both are good because we're willing to go back and forth over math problems and number sense problems and, keep good attitudes toward each other through that. That can be tough sometimes, but he's really good and I try hard to be good at it. And so we're good as far as the working relationship is. I can take a suggestion from him. He can take a suggestion from me and not be offended. And then friendships, we've been real good friends. We see eye to eye on a lot of things. Our religious faith is very similar. A lot of our philosophy of life is very similar. And, one thing that's very interesting about Larry that I bet hardly anyone knows, this guy is extra sharp. He actually did some special intelligence work for the military when he was in the military. And he still to this day can't talk specifically about it, but he's told me enough about it that you had to be really, really good at math to have his position. So if you ever talk to him one-on-one, I'm not sure how much he'll talk to you about it, but it's really interesting to let him talk about his military experience and how he used math.
Well, I did interview him. He gave you a resounding endorsement. So that gives us a lot of confidence in you as well. So he has full confidence in you, and it seems very clear that he had some admiration for you.
Well, that's good.
So what is your philosophy regarding the UIL Mathematics Directorship? And how might that change, or how might the test evolve in your hands?
Okay, I think there's going to be a lot of things that stay similar. Larry had like 3 basic philosophies. Number 1 was there needs to be questions on the test that are accessible to like freshmen and sophomores. If you've had Algebra 1 and geometry, there should be a certain number of problems that you can attempt. And so that's the number 1. I always want to keep a fair number of problems for the young kids. State will probably not be quite as many, but definitely the invitationals and probably district, there should be, 15 to 25, somewhere in there, that the young kids, they have the math to work at. Whether they'll get it right or not, it's one thing, but they'll have a chance at it. So that's one thing you want to do. Another philosophy of Larry's is he wanted to reinforce what you're teaching in the classroom. And I want to continue to do that. I've actually taught everything from Algebra 1 up to BC Calculus and AP Statistics. And so I know what gets taught in all those classes. And so I want to keep questions every test that many of them, probably most of them, look like they could have come from a textbook. Now, they may be the level 3 question from a section, but they will be based on something that's in the curriculum. I do want to have a few questions that have the AP Calculus or AP Statistics influence. If you've ever taught those, they have a really good way of checking beyond just crank it out. Can you think? Do you know why you're doing this? So I want to have a couple of those, hopefully for that guy from Wiley and the kid at Highland Park and the kid at Sherland. Hopefully I can come up with a couple to challenge those guys to see if they're, going to get those hard AP calculus questions right or hard AP stat questions right. So that's a second philosophy. And the third philosophy is enjoy it. Larry, one of his best things is he was a great ambassador for mathematics. He loves mathematics. And I want to continue a couple of his favorite things like basis. Probably not taught in any class, but he just does amazing things with basis. some of his sequence problems. Probably the hardest problems he ever does are sequence problems. Fibonacci, Fibonacci plus odd, Fibonacci plus even, Fibonacci plus prime numbers. So I want to continue those kind of fun problems that he found outside the curriculum. Just a couple.
Yeah. Awesome. So make it accessible to the newbies. Make it still curriculum based. Maybe insert some of this AP bent, and be a good ambassador for the event.
Right, and that's going to be the hardest challenge because Larry's a unique individual, and that's just who he is. And so I hope over time, because the first year or two, I think you're kind of nervous about it.
Yeah.
But I hope over time it'll come through. I'll try to be a good ambassador for UIL and UIL mathematics.
Well, I'll tell you, your positivity is radiating. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. It looks pretty good, So what role should the calculator or technology have in the contest?
Okay, I am of the camp that the kids get the calculator probably in Algebra 1. And they get a really souped up calculator, an 84, 83, some of them even get 89s that young. And so it's a way of life. And of course, in college and in the real world, computers are a way of life. So I want to use a calculator a whole bunch. There's going to be a lot of questions that require regressions. Okay. And you have to be smart enough to look at the data, maybe plot it and decide, is this quadratic? Is this cubic? Stuff like that. Looking at graphs, like Larry does a good job with that. I like the ones where you look at a graph and this is the graph of the derivative. And then ask you a question about the function itself. A good question might be, here's a graph of the second derivative. And then ask a question.
Wow.
So technology is going to be big. You need to know everything these calculators will do. The more you know your 89 or your prime or your 84 plus, the more you know about those, the faster you'll be able to do some of these problems. And you have to be smart enough to know what the calculator is doing for you. But, one thing about AP, they have calculator active questions. And the deal is these are questions that could not be answered without a calculator, but they still require some really good thinking, and you have to know what the calculator is doing for you. So I want to use the calculator a lot.
Okay. What are your thoughts about programming the calculator?
It's fair game. I know that with a prime being accepted in programming, the calculator test has changed dramatically. You don't have to do law of sines, law of cosines. You don't have to do Heron's formula. You don't have to memorize the recipe for inscribed radius, circumscribed radius. Plus, any type of problem that repeats itself that Dr. Burrell likes, it's just begging you to write a program. Okay, and so mathematics is the same way. If I'm writing a type of program that's consistently the same way, it's begging you to write a program. So what I'll probably try to do is, there's going to be some of my favorites that you're just going to see a lot, but I'll probably try to change them up and keep you guessing. And you'll be able to write some programs, but I don't think you're going to be able to guess everything I'm going to ask, but you can try.
Hey, well, the programming itself is an interesting exercise, an activity for a kid. I think there's value.
It is. So. There's a lot of value. I've talked to Larry a lot about that, and he sees no problem with it. The only thing I don't like about programming is when kids from one school will hand off all their programs to a kid from another school, and that other school didn't even have to work for it. So, like you said, there's value in writing the programs because you have to know the math. And as long as a school is writing their own programs and their kids are doing it, I think programming is great. There's a couple of schools that actually have paid people to write programs for them, and I don't like that. And I don't like getting programs from another school, but if you did them yourself, I think that's good.
In the director Larry White interview, he gives an interesting anecdote of a kid who says that you're wasting your time programming, and you should only use the calculator sparingly. It actually is more time consuming if you're leaning on it. So who knows if that's correct, but there are some champions out there who just minimally use the calculator. So
yeah, I know that. Keller state champion a few years ago. I think Larry watched him, and I think he said he picked up his calculator less than 10 times.
So, there's that. So,
Yeah.
We'll see. So, so you have a lifetime of history in UIL. I think you're the right man for the job for sure. I was going to ask, what advice? So I'm going to ask you to give two groups of people advice. I'm going to ask you to give coaches and students. So what advice would you give coaches that are watching the interview?
I would say do the best you can. Ask questions of experienced coaches who are having success. Develop the best relationship you can with your administration. Keep going to them, asking for help, because, man, that can make so much difference. But, yeah, just keep doing the best you can. I appreciate coaches who have less than perfect situations and still, they'll get a kid to state every now and then. And you can tell this coach knows a lot. It's just they don't have the Argyle situation. So wherever you're at, do your best. Cultivate your relationship with your principal. And for students, you mentioned this earlier, if you can just find a teacher at your school that you can go to for a little help, who'll spend some time with you, find that. Maybe it's the Algebra 2 teacher who will stay after school with you some and help you figure out some problems. Who knows? But find someone at your school who will help you. Do as much practice as you can. Do as many meets as you can, Team SA meets, virtual meets, UIL meets, and have a good time.
That's right. The previous director, Mr. Larry White, had the reins for nearly 2 decades.
Yeah.
Can we expect a similar stability with you at the helm?
We'll see how that plays out. I'm 67, so I'm starting out at a more advanced age than Larry. 17 years would put me, at 84? So we'll just see how it plays out. If I'm healthy and, feel like I'm still writing good tests, who knows, may continue for a long time. We'll see.
Absolutely. So I was going to ask, what does the future hold for you as director, as coach, otherwise?
Do the best I can in the situation. The pandemic has really put a hit on UIL. The student activity conferences, they only had 2 this year rather than 4, and they were really low attendance. And one thing, I'm not sure how many people actually know that I wrote a complete test that's posted under mathematics at the UIL website. And so if people want to see a complete test that I've written to get a kind of a head start, that's one thing they can do right now is go to the UIL website, hit mathematics, and you'll find it posted there. It'll say the SAC mathematics test, and it's a full 60-question test. So I want to work with UIL. David Trussell and David Stevens are really good guys, and I want to do anything that they need me to do, and maybe we can get UIL back on track the way it was about 3 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for that insight, because we'll download that SAC exam and get a taste of a Cliff McCurdy written exam. See what kind of flavor it gives us. And also, UILA is coming up. UILB is coming up. It's a busy season ahead of us. Right.
And I'm going to write 10 tests this year, 6 for UIL, including the SAC, and then I'll do the TIMSCA test, 4 of those. And so join Team SA, get those 4 tests, go to every UIL meet, and end up getting all 10.
Yes, join Team SCA. What a wonderful organization. I'm glad you made a shout out to them. I'm glad. Team SCA, great. The Texas Math and Science Coaches Association. Awesome.
Right.
So, Director McCurdy, any parting words or final thoughts as we conclude this interview?
Just practice a lot, work hard, enjoy the ride, and good luck.
Yeah. So, Mr. McCurdy, you've been so gracious with your time. I really appreciate you. And, this interview has given me a sense of confidence that UIL Mathematics is in the proper hands, is in good hands. And I feel very confident going forward that you'll be able to lead the way for us.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate you very much. Thanks again.
Sure.
Farewell.
Have a good evening. Right. Have a good evening.
You too. Farewell. Farewell.
Right.
I hope you enjoyed it. What a fascinating insight. What a nice gentleman. And I've been left reassured that the UIL Mathematics Competitions is in a very capable hands of Mr. Cliff McCurdy. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me remind you that if you enjoy this material, please hit the subscription button and the notification bell, smash that like button, and leave a comment below. I have plenty of wonderful things in store for this channel, and your subscription and like really helps out the channel. Thanks very much for viewing. My name is Saul Cantu, and this is Texas Math Mundo. Farewell.